I've discovered the formula. Monsteru. Karishima Skill Squad. Thank you, Skittle Squad. Skittle Squad, taste the mighty dragon rainbow.
So we should probably talk about some of the software that came out recently, because as we said before, Nintendo software is normally where their strength is, but these days I would...
Not so much. Because keep in mind that one of the main selling points was Nintendo announcing that, you know what, we have learned from our mistakes with the Wii, so we're going to try to cater to the hardcore crowd. And yet the major releases are all basically ports from the Xbox 360 and PS3 games, which are possibly even inferior to the old HD consoles counterparts.
Yeah, right.
And the only
Batman Arkham Asylum, Darksiders 2.
Yeah, Arkham. No, wait, not Arkham Asylum. Arkham City, where you get to play as Joel Schumacher's Batman because that armor is hideous. All it needs are the nipples.
He's right. He's absolutely fucking right.
But the only exclusive they have so far is Bayonetta 2.
Well, now here's the problem. Looking at the chart again, I keep going back to this fucking chart. Let's take away all the games that are not Nintendo exclusives. All the games at the bottom of the chart, the last 5, are apparently micro-selling. They're not selling well at all, and they are all Activision games. Now, let's say that you're Activision, and normally you're making a lot of money out of these games, whether or not they're good or bad or whatever, because they're spread out over all 3 consoles. Now you dedicate all your time and money to working on a brand new console that isn't selling and isn't selling your products. How does that affect your business compared to if the Xbox 360's predecessor and the PS3's predecessor were there at the moment? If you do the math, then you realize just how fucked everyone else is because of Nintendo, and that's going to probably lead to a big industry backlash if they don't sort their shit out.
Yeah, and it's happened in the past too. I mean, the GameCube suffered some developmental problems because it didn't sell quite as well as like past Nintendo consoles with the emergence of the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox. And
GameCube had better graphics and specs and stuff.
Yeah, it did, but there were fewer of them in people's houses than a PlayStation 2.
Absolutely.
Not to mention, just to go back to the exclusives, remember all those trailers they showed on E3, not necessarily of the games themselves, but rather all these big names in the video game industry, like designers, talking about how great it is working on the Wii U and how it opens new horizons. Where the fuck are the games?
Yeah.
Exactly. Still haven't come out. I have to say, guys, we could do a whole podcast on E3 itself, just thinking about it. We're a little harder! I mean, fucking Mr. Caffeine. And remember that woman who came out last year when they showed Rayman Legends and everyone was like, yes! Literally, it got a standing ovation. And she came out at the end and said, well, I only play shooters, so I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
That was such an absolutely shitty fucking E3. That one lady who's completely unlikable, and there's that other douche guy who thought he was like the funniest thing since like fucking Gallagher. I don't know.
That was the year before. That was fucking.
Oh, was it?
That was Mr. Caffeine, the one who came out and was like, "Hi, I'm Ubisoft's idea of a funny American comedian, even though I've actually got no jokes, and all I talk about is dicks." And what was great was like he tried to work the audience, and the audience was having none of it.
I mean, the year even before that one, what was the big reveal? The Wii finger monitor, heart monitor.
Yeah, the arousal sensor.
The last several Nintendo E3s have been absolute shit.
But me and my friends, we have this thing where every year we get together online, like a group of 10 of us, and we watch every single little bit of E3 together. We're all from different time zones and shit, but we still manage it. And one of the best things was we decided to stick around for the year that's just been, E3 pre-show for Nintendo, which is Iwata Asks. You've probably seen it turned into a lot of YouTube poops. Now, Iwata is a very intelligent man, and he's a very fluent speaker. Not in English, and it's like, you could have spoken in Japanese with subtitles, and we would have been fine with that. Instead, you spoke in English, and we got to take the piss out of you going, on this new console, you can use stick or a finger. And my personal favourite, you can send a tickist message. And like the whole chat with me and my friend was just like this. It was just like tickist message. We are sending text messages. And it's just like
I mean, that's the biggest problem is they don't, when they release console, historically, they've always just released like one or two IP properties, and here they're trying to do the same thing, and it doesn't fly in this day and age. I mean, you got the new Super Mario Brothers and you got Nintendo Land, and then everything else is a port of older games. And gamers look at that and they're like, well, am I going to shell out $200-$300 for a glorified Wii just to get Mario?
yeah, exactly.
And every time people get vocal about them being sick and tired of Nintendo's strategy, they just resurrect one or two of their older, more obscure IPs like F-Zero, or with the GameCube it was Metroid.
Well, they should have had all those right from the get-go. I mean, if Nintendo's making a console and they already know what the specs are going to be, why aren't they already like making like, you know, a new Metroid game, or why aren't they already making like Star Fox or something like that? They know they'll sell. They know that they'll help people make a decision on buying that new console, but they just put it off, or maybe it just takes that long to develop. I don't know.
Because apparently they have a BDSM type of relationship with the fan base. They like to tease them, they like to starve them, and like with the most recent announcement was Pikmin 3. And even then it turns out that Pikmin was essentially meant to be a Wii game, but Nintendo decided to wait. The same shit they did with Twilight Princess, because that was originally supposed to be a GameCube title, but then they decided to wait like an extra year and a half and release it on the new console, and sort of the same thing is happening with Pikmin 3. So it's a case of them having a very, very, very limited amount of imagination, contrary to what they're constantly boasting about. And so they're trying to sort of stretch these releases so that everything seems like like the second coming of Jesus. A new Pikmin, like, yeah, it's the main event. No,
he's coming next year. He's coming next year. He's coming next year.
I mean, up until like the last moment, people were not aware that if Skyward Sword was going to even be released on the Wii, because they promised it in like early 2012, and there were no news about it. So people started, rumors started circulating that perhaps they're saving it for the Wii U. But then again, like with Twilight Princess, they released it at the end of the console cycle, and that's it. It just flew under the radar.
Well, I don't plan on ever like buying a Wii U until like I see some more, IP games. If I saw like, Metroid, maybe I'd pick it up. Maybe if I saw Zelda, I'd pick it up. But it's just right now, all we have is Nintendo Land and a rehashed Super Mario Brothers.
And I'm afraid that's basically all you're going to get, aside from the obvious multi-platform with Tecton gimmicks.
Yeah, well, it does take a while for Nintendo to kind of get into the game, because Nintendo 64, I mean, it took them about a year to make Star Fox 64, and took 2 or 3 years to get Ocarina of Time out of them.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to Nintendo's got a very long history. Unlike a lot of the other companies, it's stayed in the rat race for the longest. As a result, I think it will always have a very strong following. The question is, how long will that following stay there when the next generation comes in?
Right, because the next generation didn't grow up on Mario, and
more importantly, the next generation's parents didn't grow up on Mario either. They grew up with a much wider variety of choice. And that's what's going to make it really sort of interesting. I mean, of course, again, yeah, I stress Wreck-It Ralph because Wreck-It Ralph is a very Nintendo-inspired film. And, parents and kids are going to harken back to that every time they think of it. So I'm just very curious to see where the next generation will take it.
True, but the problem is that gaming, video games as a medium has changed a lot in the past, even just the past decade. So you say that Nintendo is like the oldest, but the problem is I think they're like the only ones, aside from Sega in places, who still adhere to, mascot style video games, or traditional in a sense, like, there has to be a Mario game every generation. Or I think it's just Nintendo and possibly Final Fantasy and no one else these days, not counting the ubiquitous sequels, remakes, blah, blah, blah. So I think essentially that's going to die very soon as well, because people are more interested in something fresh and something new. I'm sorry, but I've played one Mario game, and essentially I consider I've played them all. If other consoles, if game companies companies have much more interesting IPs. For example, because I'm playing it right now, Telltale Games and The Walking Dead, I'm not gonna waste my time on fucking Mario.
Yeah, exactly. You've got choice, so you don't need to stay with one or the other. And everybody's got their preference, so. But I think we need to kind of wrap this up now.
Yep.
So, closing points, I guess.
Nintendo just needs more software. That's the closing point.
Yeah, Nintendo. Now you're playing with old school shit. I don't know. What was
Now you're playing with relics.
Yes. Yeah, that is the perfect way to end it.